In the 8th year of my secret marriage to Theodore, he brazenly brought home the college student he sponsored on the day of the mid-autumn family reunion. He said, "Today is a day for family, Miss Isadora. Please don't make things difficult for a young lady who's had too much to drink." Everyone thought I would, as always, swallow my anger and maintain his facade. But looking into his cold eyes, I suddenly felt that 8 years of marriage had become utterly pointless. I overturned the table and threw the divorce papers in his face. "I won't make things difficult for her. I'll only make things difficult for you." When Genevieve was picked up by Theodore, it was already 5 in the afternoon. He held her in his arms, his entire being radiating joy. I watched all of this in the rearview mirror, numbly pressing the horn. "Mr. Theodore, the madam specifically instructed that you must arrive promptly for tonight's mid-autumn family dinner." The crowd burst into laughter and teasing. "Mr. Theodore, you're quite the charmer. First, the clingy little assistant, and now the considerate, sensible chief secretary. Speaking of which, Secretary Isadora has been with this guy for 8 years, hasn't she? She's really become like his housekeeper." I smiled calmly. Except for the Theodores, no one in the entire city knew that I was Theodore's wife of 8 years in a secret marriage. Nor did anyone know that this secretary, seemingly poised, was loathed to the bone by Theodore. "Take Miss Genevieve home first," I instinctively retorted. "The family dinner is at 7. There's no time now." Theodore raised his voice impatiently. "Stop the car." I slammed on the brakes, looking back in confusion. "Isadora, don't forget, we have a secret marriage agreement. In the public eye, you have no right to control me. Anyway, aren't you good at pleasing people? Then deal with it yourself." Once again Theodore abandoned me. He knew perfectly well that the Theodores disliked me, especially Eleanor, his mother, who never missed an opportunity to embellish and reiterate in public the story of how I had clung to Theodore. I desperately suppressed the tears that threatened to spill. "It's okay, it'll be over soon. Just get through this period." I sighed, having been bullied by the Theodores for so long that even my self-comfort had become self-deception. As soon as I returned to the old house, Eleanor stared at me with a cold face. "What are you doing back alone? Where's Theodore?" I ignored Eleanor's sharp questioning and went straight past her to sit down in a corner. Having navigated the Theodore family for so many years, I knew that the best thing to do in this situation was to play deaf and dumb. The clock struck 7, and the moon-worshipping ceremony began. Eleanor had just lit the incense when it was interrupted by a sob. Everyone present followed the sound. Theodore, with his tall figure, was carrying a woman in a red dress in his arms. "I'm sorry, Mr. Theodore. I've soiled your shirt with my tears. I just miss my mother so much. Every mid-autumn she was with me, but this year she's in the hospital and I." Genevieve struggled to get down, only to find everyone staring at her in surprise. She shyly buried her face in Theodore's chest. "There are so many people, they wouldn't laugh at me for crying like a child, would they?" Her childish words made Theodore laugh. He stroked her with affection. "They won't laugh at you, but I might." I closed my eyes. The last layer of pretense between Theodore and I had finally been torn away by him personally. "Had enough of your act, Miss Genevieve? Isadora, today is a family reunion. There's no need for you to pick on a young girl who's had too much to drink. Oh, I forgot today is the anniversary of your murderer father's death. No wonder you're in a bad mood." I clenched my fists. I never thought that the person who once felt sorry for my plight would one day publicly tear open my wounds. Hearing my argument with Theodore, Genevieve seemed to sober up a bit. She walked to me, looking embarrassed, and bowed 90 degrees. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Theodore. Please don't argue with Mr. Theodore because of me. Mrs. Theodore, I really can't suppress my feelings." Her tears fell one after another, quickly soaking a small patch of the floor. The surrounding people began to whisper mockingly. "If you ask me, you can't completely blame the man for cheating. Back then, the Isadora family was on the verge of bankruptcy. It was Isadora who shamelessly forced Theodore to marry her. You reap what you sow. Now you've got to taste some hardship. Besides, in wealthy families, this is quite normal, isn't it?" I ignored the sneers. Looking at Genevieve, who kept bowing and apologizing, the grievances and anger accumulated over the years burst out at that moment. I coldly helped her up and then swiftly raised my hand, slapping her across the face. The sharp, loud slap silenced the noisy scene. Even Genevieve was staring at me in disbelief. Theodore, with a dark face, angrily pushed me aside. Enough of this drama! I was unprepared and half of my body fell towards the railing. Just before I landed in the lotus pond, I saw Theodore cooing to Genevieve with gentle words. What position do you have to apologize to her? I'll figure out how to deal with this. The water in the lotus pond was shallow, but I was afraid of water, and I was frantically thrashing in the pond in panic. Help! Theodore, save me! Between rising and falling in the water, I finally heard Theodore's words. Isadora, the water in the lotus pond only reaches a person's chest. Who are you trying to deceive? It's good for you to suffer a bit, so you won't forget your place, and go around acting like a mad dog. He called the guests to go to the front hall. No one stayed for me. By the time I crawled ashore, covered in mud, the entire courtyard was pitch black. Listening to the cheerful laughter from the front hall, I could only feel that my 8 years had been utterly ridiculous. After taking a moment to compose myself in the yard, I pushed open the door to the front hall with a cold face. The air conditioning inside was strong, making me shiver. Genevieve, drunk and drowsy, noticed me immediately. She ran over with a cup of tea. Sister Isadora, what happened to you? Ew, what's that smell on you? So fishy and foul. Let me help you wash it off. With that, she splashed the cup of scalding hot tea on me. I reacted quickly and jumped aside, but the splashed water still scalded me and made me suck in a breath. I couldn't take it anymore. I rushed over and grabbed Genevieve's hair, slapping her several times. Pretending to be drunk, are you? I'll help you. I picked up a bottle of red wine and poured it into her mouth. She struggled violently, but I held her down, and she was powerless to resist. By the time Theodore rushed over, Genevieve was truly drunk. He picked me up with disgust and threw me to the side. Isadora, if anything happens to Genevieve, I will not let you go. I steadied myself against the wall and hurled the wine bottle at his retreating back. Theodore, we're done. The mid-autumn family dinner ended in discord. Late that night I lay in bed, an overwhelming sense of exhaustion spreading through my body. The marriage with Theodore was forced by circumstances. My father was framed by his business rivals for selling substandard products. On the way to collect evidence, we were in a car accident and we fell into the sea with the car. At the moment of life and death, my father desperately pushed me towards the rescuers. But he was seriously injured and hospitalized. My father was unconscious, and the company was on the verge of collapse. I had to brace myself to turn the tide. But my single effort couldn't withstand the joint suppression of several companies. On the day my father's condition worsened, Theodore approached me. He said, Miss Isadora, how about trying another path? I'm in urgent need of the Isadora family's core technology to open up the market. In return, I will help the Isadora family secure funding. However, in business, you never know what might happen. So Miss Isadora must secretly marry me until Theodore's name dominates the market. If Miss Isadora doesn't agree, it's okay. I have plenty of ways to make you. I desperately agreed. After the marriage, he had some genuine affection for me. I was weak and had a cold uterus, so he studied nutrition and coaxed me to eat the medicinal meals. He made for me spoonful by spoonful. Knowing that I loved to travel the world, he accompanied me on trips all over Northern Europe while handling work. But 8 years was too long, and it made the already fragile relationship precarious. He became increasingly busy, so busy that he didn't have time to see me. Occasionally, when we bumped into each other at charity galas, he would leave without looking back, with Genevieve by his side. And Eleanor often criticized me for not being pregnant in 8 years. She forcefully made me Theodore's secretary. It was on that day that I discovered the hidden clause in the prenuptial agreement. Both parties voluntarily signed this secret marriage agreement. If, after 7 years, the parties have no feelings, and the man proposes a divorce, the woman must leave without any possessions and must transfer all core technology resources to the man. If she breaches this term, she will compensate the man with 80 million. I pondered this sentence repeatedly and incredulously called Theodore. Is there something wrong with the prenuptial agreement? The music on the other end was loud, but I still heard him clearly. You found out? So what? Your father is dead. Now who can stand up for you? His arrogant tone made it clear he was sure I wouldn't risk a showdown with him. But corner a dog and it's sure to bite. He forgot that I was a vengeful person. The day had already broken, and even if I didn't want to face it, I still needed to go to work. As soon as I arrived at the company, I found that all my belongings were gone. In their place was Genevieve's employee ID card. Oliver, the assistant, moved closer to me. Sister, the data you sent to Huamao was incorrect, and they've withdrawn their investment now. I frowned in confusion. What? Withdrawn their investment? Theodore returned from outside, radiating hostility. He threw the contract at my feet. Isadora, you're fired. Your data was wrong, resulting in a direct loss of $30 million to the Theodore Corporation. Genevieve's loud voice came from behind Theodore. She threw the document heavily on me, her eyes sparkling with righteousness. I pushed my way through the crowd and tried to find the file's history, only to discover that it was a brand new computer. Even my internal account had been cancelled. In an instant I understood. Theodore was trying to use me as a stepping stone for Genevieve. Mr. Theodore, based on Genevieve's words alone, you won't even check the surveillance footage and are firing the secretary who's been with you for 8 years? Aren't you afraid that the other long-term employees will feel resentful? Oliver tugged my sleeve secretly. Sister, the surveillance cameras are under maintenance. I looked at Theodore with a cold smile. You've really gone to great lengths. Isadora, recognize your place. I swallowed hard. If I can find the evidence, how do you plan to deal with her? Theodore's face darkened. She wouldn't. My anger instantly flared. Would I? Don't you know what kind of person I am? I ignored everyone and stood on the table, taking down the pinhole camera installed on the windowsill. A few months ago, things were always going missing from the secretary's office, so I bought a pinhole camera at my own expense. I directly logged into the account. In the video, Genevieve, while everyone was out for lunch, sat at my workstation. Tapping away with her fingers, she not only backed everything up, but also damaged my host with boiling water. Oh my God! How could there be such a disgusting person? Isn't this a setup? I knew it. There's no way that Secretary Isadora could make such a low-level mistake. The flood of comments turned Genevieve's cheeks red. She stood pitifully behind Theodore. Mr. Theodore, I'm sorry. I just wanted to learn more so that I can keep up with your pace. Genevieve's tears fell in torrents. She had manipulated the focus to her feelings for Theodore with just a few sentences. I didn't bother to compete with her using such despicable methods, but Theodore adored her. Genevieve, should I commend you for your naivety or your stupidity? Even if the evidence is gone, there's still handwriting analysis, fingerprint comparison. Did you really think I was wasting my time all these years? Without any courtesy, I picked up the files from the table and threw them all at her. Ah! Genevieve screamed and covered the arm that had been scratched by the file, crying uncontrollably. The crowd was jeering and sneering at her. What did Secretary Isadora do to offend her? This is a major mistake. She'll not only have to compensate the company for huge losses, but will also be held accountable and face jail time. This move is too cruel. Yeah, if she hadn't found out the truth, Secretary Isadora's life would have been ruined. Throwing things at her is lenient. Genevieve, inexperienced and naive, rolled her eyes and fainted. Enough. This matter ends here. Anyone who dares to spread rumors will face the consequences. Theodore was angry, but I was equally aggrieved. If I hadn't made a big scene today, no other company would ever dare to hire me. He had really never thought of me, not even for a second. Looking at his indifferent eyes, my 8 years of affection, barely hanging on, vanished in an instant. I opened the president's private cabinet, took out the divorce papers, and threw them in his face. Mr. Theodore, these divorce papers have been here for a long time, haven't they? As long as you compensate me with 10% of the company shares, I'll sign the divorce papers immediately. I've always been someone who can adapt to any situation. There's no reason to let money go just because the love is gone. The office became deathly silent. No one had expected me to be the mysterious wife of Theodore in a secret marriage for 8 years. Even Genevieve stopped sobbing. Mr. Theodore, we did wrong to Secretary Isadora. I raised an eyebrow, my gaze fixed on Genevieve. She was still too impatient. Even someone as clever as Theodore wouldn't be blind to her ambition. Theodore didn't answer her, but with a calm expression, pulled me into the office. The Theodore Corporation is at a critical moment of transformation. Don't make a scene. If you leave now, the investors you deal with only trust you. What would happen to the Theodore Corporation then? I pushed him away. What does the Theodore Corporation have to do with me? You only don't want to lose the resources I have, that's all. He pulled at his tie in frustration. Is it because of Genevieve? I will transfer her to a branch company, will that be okay? I shook my head. Don't talk to me in such a condescending tone. I don't owe you anything. Seeing that I remained unmoved, he softened his tone and resorted to sentimental tactics. Isadora, do you not love me anymore? Have you ever considered the uncontrollable factors involved in divorce? Can you be more rational? Moreover, the current head of the Isadora family is your uncle. He has worked with me many times. What do you have to challenge his position? We've been married for so many years. I'm really worried about you seeing you act so rashly. I suddenly laughed until tears streamed down my face. How did I not realize before that you are so irresponsible? Theodore, this performance of affection doesn't suit you. Even ants can move elephants. No matter what I am, my name is still Isadora. It's none of your business to worry about me. Theodore's face darkened. I can leave the house and the car to you, but don't even think about the shares. This is the utmost kindness I can give you. According to the prenuptial agreement, you would be leaving with nothing. I stared at him with icy eyes. I've already burned the prenuptial agreement. I pulled out my phone and showed him a video. In the video, the lawyer who had drafted the prenuptial agreement for him accepted the card I had prepared and bowed respectfully to me. There is nothing in this world that money can't solve. If there is, then there isn't enough money. I had him revoke the prenuptial agreement in your name. Now you and I are equal as a married couple. He angrily swept all the documents on the table onto the floor. You dare to scheme against me? I didn't even raise my head and asked back. Did you ever think of this day when you were plotting against me? He took a deep breath. You contributed a lot to the company's development. Are you willing to let it all go down the drain? Besides, what can you do with the shares as a woman? Can't the house and the car secure your place in this society? I understood he was betting on my attachment to the company, but he was wrong. I was never someone who acted on emotion. I looked directly into his eyes. Why should I back down? Just because I'm a woman? You underestimate my ambition too much. Ambition? Theodore was back to his usual calm demeanor. He toyed with the pen in his hand. If you want a divorce, fine. Secure the Deepwater Bay project, and I'll not only give you the house and the car, but I'll also give you the 10% of the shares you're asking for. If you can't, then you'll stay at home and be a full-time housewife from now on. I understood that Theodore wouldn't let me off so easily. He was just trying to make me give up. After all companies in the city had tried their best to secure the Deepwater Bay project but failed. I tapped the table lightly and pointed at the crowd of people watching outside. What about Genevieve? How will you settle the account for her framing a colleague and damaging the company's interests? Hearing that, Genevieve rushed in. Secretary Isadora, how about we make a bet? If you secure the Deepwater Bay project, I will not only resign, but also compensate the company for its losses. As soon as she said this, her colleagues in the office erupted. Genevieve, you are just an employee, what are you putting on? That's right, you're still trying to compete with Secretary Isadora. You really don't know your own limitations. Genevieve turned a deaf ear and directly presented a ring. I am the missing daughter of Jiang Wentan of Zhujiang Mansion. Working in the Theodore Corporation is merely a cultural exchange between the two companies. I let out a barely visible smile. She was finally losing her patience, was she? She leaned on Theodore. If I secure the project, sorry to say, not only will I take over your position as Mrs. Theodore, but you'll also have to return those 5% of shares you have to Mr. Theodore. In that case, Theodore would be the biggest shareholder of the company. It seemed she really had calculated it well. I smiled and accepted the bet. The news about my bet with Genevieve spread quickly. As soon as I arrived at the project department, a troublemaker took the lead in stirring things up. Secretary Isadora, it's better to go back to the secretary's office. We don't show sympathy here. I heard that Secretary Isadora signed a military order. If she can't secure the Deepwater Bay project in a month, she will go home and be Mr. Theodore's caged bird. His words were ambiguous, and everyone looked at me with ill intentions. I didn't respond. It would be a waste of time to engage with those who had no strength but only knew how to curry favor with those in power. Isadora, long time no see. Lillian gave me a bear hug as soon as she saw me. She was an old and loyal veteran of the Isadora family. She had brought the Isadora's core team to work at the Theodore Corporation and provide them with technical support. But most of all, she was there to accompany me. She hugged me and whispered in my ear, "Don't worry, we have not personally touched any of the Theodore's deals over the last few years. They were all handled by their own people. So if there are any problems later, they can't come after us. Moreover, we changed the data of the core technology that the Theodore Corporation stole. When they use it, the finished product will just end up more defective." Lillian and I smiled at each other. This game had begun 8 years ago. There was no way that Theodore would get to kill the donkey after using it. After setting the plan for the Deepwater Bay project bid for tomorrow, I came to the tea room to make a cup of fruit tea. While waiting for the water to boil, Genevieve, who should have been in the 45th floor office, appeared in the 30th floor project department. She pretended and said, "I am very sorry." I looked at her clumsy act with ridicule. "Miss Genevieve, there's no need for this. A pathological relationship is like a tumor, and I'll just make a clean cut, and I won't give the tumor a chance to grow. As for the apology, I don't see even a bit of sincerity. Miss Genevieve seems to be an ungrateful person." I had met Genevieve before Theodore. On the day the Zhujiang Tower was completed, I was invited to witness this historic moment. Just as the ribbon cutting was taking place, a disheveled Genevieve rushed in. She was clutching an emerald ring and knelt directly in front of the Zhujiang Tower CEO. "Dad, I'm your long-lost daughter." Everyone present was used to such scenes. It was not uncommon for millionaires to be confronted by random children claiming kinship. But Genevieve should not have appeared at that moment. Most wealthy people were superstitious. Her appearance not only delayed the auspicious time, but also gave the reporters on site a big story. As expected, she was escorted out with kicks and shoves before long. I originally didn't want to interfere, but seeing her almost fainting in the rain, I had a moment of compassion. I had her placed in the shelter that Theodore and I had invested in. Before leaving, she tugged at my sleeve and asked, "Why did you save me? Wouldn't it have been better if I had died?" I wiped her tears away. "It's better to live badly than to die. You must understand that in wealthy families, interests are stronger than blood relations. Only when you yourself have value will those who look down on you take you seriously." After that night, she disappeared. When we met again, she was Theodore's sponsored college student. At the charity gala, she laughed giddily. "Back then, it was all thanks to your guidance. Now, I've not only been recognized by the Jiang family, but I'm also being kept by a new business tycoon. Do you think I'm useful now?" I raised my glass and gently clinked it against hers. "Useful but not much. Our value isn't just to be used as objects for marriage. Let me advise you, leave them and you can live well too." She didn't reply. Since that dinner, she had become increasingly hostile towards me, and had given me no peace for the past few years. I patted Genevieve's shoulder, gesturing for her to come back to her senses. "Don't worry, I never recycle trash." She bit her lower lip. "You're just jealous that Theodore loves me." I smiled and walked away in my high heels. Girls from dysfunctional families seem to always hope that someone will love their true selves unconditionally. But in this era where profit is the first priority, love has become a disposable commodity. The true love that Genevieve believed in was probably already priced, just waiting for her to take the bait. On the day of the bid, Theodore appeared at the scene with Genevieve. He was always suspicious, so he would definitely take charge of such an important project himself. But 5 hours passed, and the bid had not yet begun. The waiter responsible for the reception announced on stage, "Following the client's notice, the bidding event is temporarily cancelled." You may move to the inner hall to taste the fine wines from the Rose Winery. As soon as the news was announced, some company executives left, cursing. Even the energetic Lillian was deflated. This is some kind of show. I pinched her mouth. Not necessarily. Hearing what I said, Lillian was energized again. She grabbed my arm and analyzed the unfamiliar faces at the reception. My head started to ache from her chatter, so I excused myself to take a break in the restroom. As soon as I entered, the sound of something heavy falling to the ground caught my attention. I turned around and saw a woman in a winery uniform had collapsed on the floor. Looking at her pale face, I took out a chocolate from my bag and placed it in her mouth. After a while, she slowly woke up. "Thank you, my blood sugar is low again." She paused for a moment and stood up with my help. I noticed a small bloodstain on her pants. I knew she probably had her period. I took off my jacket and tied it around her waist. She was stunned for a moment and then smiled at me gratefully. "Miss, how about you give me your address so I can return the jacket and thank you in person for saving me?" I helped her pick up the papers on the ground. "It's just a small favor. No need to worry about it." She nodded and slowly walked out of the restroom with my support. As we passed the hall, many men were looking at me with lustful eyes. Only then did she notice that I had taken off my jacket and was now only wearing a tight-fitting tank top dress. Lillian quickly walked over and shielded me from those uncomfortable gazes. "Isadora, we, the Theodore Corporation, haven't come to the point where you have to sell yourself. Secretary Isadora, you've worked under Mr. Theodore for 8 years. How can you have so little self-respect?" I looked in the direction of the voice and saw Theodore and Genevieve. They were exaggerating the situation. "Your taste is getting worse. This man is effeminate. Can he handle you?" The girl I was supporting touched her buzz cut and suddenly laughed. "Someone like you, only relying on a strong facade, even if she begged for a free ride, she'd find it disgusting." It was the first time Theodore had been humiliated so badly in public. The onlookers made him desperate to recover his masculine dignity. With bloodshot eyes, he raised his fist and swung it at me. I instinctively pushed the girl to the side and took 2 punches from Theodore. His force was tremendous. I lost my balance and my stomach slammed into the corner of the buffet table. A piercing pain spread from my stomach throughout my body. I curled up on the floor, blood gushing out from between my legs. "Help, help me." When I woke up again, Theodore was sitting by my bedside looking tired. "You're pregnant. Why didn't you tell me?" I closed my eyes and a hot tear rolled down. "You know that I have irregular periods. It's just as well. A child conceived through drunken sex shouldn't be kept." Theodore felt a tightness in his chest. He wanted to say something but couldn't. This child was indeed the result of him forcing me 2 months ago when he was drunk. Now karma had come full circle. He had personally caused his child's demise. "If you had found out earlier and told me." I smiled wryly. "What would have happened if I told you earlier? Would you not have cheated? Or would you have turned over a new leaf and returned to our family?" He stood frozen, his expression both conflicted and pained. I took a deep breath. "In the past, the present, and the future, I don't need you to take on the responsibility of being a father. You don't deserve it. Using a child to tie down a man is cruel to oneself and irresponsible to the child." Theodore stood up and softly told me, "I'm sorry." I didn't answer. He had so much to be sorry about. "If you're truly sorry, how about signing the divorce papers now, and go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get divorced later?" "Don't worry. I submitted the divorce application last month." He slumped, his face showing defeat. "Did we really have to get to this point?" "No, it was you who brought us to this point." After a long silence, he agreed. After successfully obtaining the divorce certificate, Theodore never appeared again. Meanwhile, Genevieve took advantage of my convalescence to jump around the group and contact the people in charge of the Deepwater Bay project. It was said that she had contacted a key member and was planning a dinner meeting on the weekend. Lillian paced back and forth by my bed anxiously. It would have been better if we had delayed it a bit longer. None of the companies that collaborated with the Theodore Corporation have paid the final amount. Now the Theodore Corporation can be said to be a mere shell, relying entirely on our technology to get orders. Your words, TSK, if you lose. I pulled her sleeve. I won't lose, I will win. In the next few days, I didn't show up at the company at all. Meanwhile, the rumors of Genevieve securing the Deepwater Bay project became more and more credible, even trending on local social media. Everyone assumed that I had given up and ran away, so they no longer made an effort to hide their praise of Genevieve in the company's group chats. Perhaps out of guilt, Theodore called me. Isadora, transfer your 5% of shares to me privately. After all, it won't look good if you lose. And as a woman, you don't know how to do business. What if you get cheated out of your shares? I hung up the phone with a snap, feeling disgusted. The dinner party a few days later was held at the Rose Winery. Theodore, being polite and generous, led Jasper, the key member, to the head seat. And Genevieve, standing by his side, looked every bit the mistress of the Theodore Corporation. Some perceptive subordinates flattered her by raising their glasses in toast. After a few rounds, Jasper began talking about the benefits of the Deepwater Bay project in a grandiose manner. Everyone present seemed to see mountains of money waving at them. Theodore, hiccuping, raised his glass again. Mr. Jasper, for this collaboration, the Theodore Corporation will definitely do its best with utmost sincerity. Jasper smiled and took a sip of red wine, slowly pointing to the door. I can't make the decision on this. Theodore followed the direction and saw a young woman standing at the door. She sat down on her own, picked up a knife and fork, and put a medium-rare steak in her mouth. After finishing one piece, she elegantly wiped the bloodstains from her mouth with a handkerchief. Long time no see, Mr. Theodore. Are you still hitting women? Everyone present froze in unison. Let me introduce myself. My name is Joan. I am the president of Huamao, and also the person in charge of the Deepwater Bay project. Theodore reacted quickly and raised his glass. Miss Joan, I was blind to your worth before and was negligent in my treatment of you. Joan clicked her tongue. Noisy and disgusting. She impatiently picked at her crimson fingernails. Mr. Theodore, we women don't know how to do business. It's already good enough if we are not cheated by men. Theodore was speechless and froze. Seeing that the situation was going awry, Genevieve forced a smile and raised her glass to smooth things over. Miss Joan, we. Joan raised her hand to interrupt her. Sorry, I feel even more disgusted when I hear your voice, you homewrecker. With that, she made a vomiting expression. The atmosphere was a bit tense. Jasper stepped in with a laugh to smooth things over. It's easy to continue the discussion, just call Isadora here. Theodore's face darkened and he didn't speak. Genevieve by his side had no choice but to remain silent. Joan smiled lightly and snapped her fingers. Mr. Theodore, it seems like you're not sincere enough. So we'll have to collaborate another time. News of the failed collaboration quickly spread back to the company, and I and Genevieve became the focus of discussion once again. At my prompting, the headline Zhang family heiress becomes a mistress for love quickly topped the charts on major platforms. Soon meticulous netizens found many details of Genevieve and Theodore's dates. And I, the incompetent ex-wife, sold myself miserably based on my pitiful past and gained a large following. The Theodore Corporation, however, suffered significant fluctuations in its stock price because of Genevieve and Theodore's affair. At the shareholder meeting on Monday, Theodore was severely criticized. Whether they win or lose, the old foxes on the board would not suffer any losses. However, now that I wasn't doing anything, they panicked. They specifically held a shareholders meeting for me, forcing Theodore to apologize to me. Isadora, what do you want before you will sign the contract for the Deepwater Bay project? I didn't say anything, but several shareholders were getting anxious. They had invested a lot of money in the Deepwater Bay project. If the collaboration were to fall through, they might not recover in years. The oldest shareholder of the Theodore Corporation spoke up. Isadora, as long as you sign the contract, we can make you chairman. Theodore remained calm, just clutching the pen tightly in his hand. No need, my resignation letter has already been approved by the Human Resources Department. The Theodore Corporation had too many problems and unclear accounts. I didn't want to be a scapegoat for Theodore. The news of my successful acquisition of the Deepwater Bay project spread quickly throughout the city. Many people wanted a piece of the action and went to the Theodore Corporation to discuss collaboration with me. But I had already left the Theodore Corporation with my team. Not only that, but I had also used my connections to steal a lot of orders from the Theodore Corporation. Theodore was furious in the company, but he still stubbornly ordered the technical department to operate according to the previous production steps. However, no matter how they operated, they only produced defective products. Seeing that the delivery date was approaching, in order to receive the final payment and provide the group with funds to operate, Theodore had no choice but to use substandard products, allowing these products with a high lead content to circulate in the market. Perhaps no one could bail out the Theodore Corporation now. Theodore officially announced his engagement with the heiress of the Zhujiang Tower. In order to provoke me, Theodore personally sent the wedding invitation to the Isadora Corporation. He discovered that the person sitting in the president's seat was not my uncle, but me. Why are you here? Where is your uncle? I shrugged. He's getting old. It's time to give way to someone more capable. If you want to find him, you can try to run into him in the Maldives. He calmed himself, not speaking for a while. What? Thinking of threatening my uncle to get back Isadora's core technology. The little pride that Theodore had left was repeatedly crushed by me. He left a harsh threat. You just wait and see. And he had to wait until he heard the news of Genevieve's runaway at their wedding. At the same time, my people, posing as product review bloggers, sent the Theodore Corporation's products for testing. Unsurprisingly, the test report became a hit on the internet. Many netizens dug out previously purchased products from the Theodore Corporation and found that they also contained various toxic substances. The public was in an uproar, and the hashtag of Theodore Corporation being a black-hearted company was at the top of the hot search list. Many netizens tagged the tax bureau and requested a thorough investigation of the Theodore Corporation's tax payments. This investigation did indeed find evidence of tax evasion and money laundering, and other such crimes. The number of people involved was as high as 20, including Theodore. How could I not have some evidence, having spent 8 years by his side? His office, his car, and all the entertainment venues he frequented all had surveillance equipment I had ordered installed. But that was not enough. I wanted him to live in defeat for the rest of his life. I went to the prison to see Theodore one last time. Your mother couldn't handle the blow and went crazy, but don't worry, the people from the Women's Federation have sent her to a nursing home. He lowered his head, his hands clenching into fists. It's you. I scratched my head. Not too stupid, are you? When did you get to know Joan? At the winery. I looked at him with amusement. No, even earlier. Remember the shelter? She approached you and asked you to sponsor her to study abroad in the US. But back then you thought she was too dark and thin, and that she didn't have a promising future. You not only humiliated her publicly by saying she had the fate of a servant, but also kicked her out. And I found her afterward. I not only let her study abroad, but also gave her plenty of resources to climb up. Thankfully, she did not disappoint. Hearing this, Theodore was stunned. Impossible, impossible. Theodore, nothing is impossible. Just like you thought that I would never know that you were the one who caused my father's death. His pupils dilated, and his face was filled with shock. You haven't been doing the substandard product thing for the first time, have you? Back then, you secretly bought off the employees of the Isadora Corporation, wanting to reduce production costs in this way. However, you didn't expect that the employee was as greedy as you. Not wanting to keep a bottomless pit by your side, you decided to get rid of him. But he was not a good person. Before he died, he sent a video of you bribing him to my email. Theodore, do you know how much I have hated these years? Do you know how much I wanted to die with you when you were constantly guiding public opinion to suppress the Isadora Corporation? His eyes were red and he struggled to ask me, did you ever really love me? I stood up, disgust etched on my face, and told him, I have only hate for you, no love. After leaving the visitation room, I bought a bouquet of flowers and went to the cemetery. For 8 long years I had not dared to set foot in this place. I was afraid that my father would blame me for leading a wolf into the house by suggesting a collaboration with the Theodore Corporation. Dad, Theodore was sentenced to life imprisonment. Dad, after I expose him for murder, only the death penalty will await him. Are you satisfied with this result? Dad, are you still blaming me? Why haven't you come to see me in my dreams these past years? I squatted down and used a handkerchief to wipe the dust from the tombstone. Just as I lowered my head, a pair of white canvas shoes appeared in my line of sight. Sister Isadora, I am about to leave the city. Are you not going to see me off? It was Genevieve. Her hair was straightened, and she looked at me with a bare face, just like the impulsive little girl who was claiming kinship many years ago. The Zhang family is falling, and the Theodore family is falling as well. This is probably the happiest thing in my life. This time, I smiled at her from the bottom of my heart. Theodore would never know that Genevieve, whom he had sponsored, was someone I had personally sent to his side. Unlike Joan, Genevieve had actively reached out to me and confessed everything. It turned out that Theodore had misappropriated her design without her permission. Calling it misappropriation was more like stealing. But at that time she was just an ordinary worker on the team. Her arguments for justice were met by the team leader with defamation. You're a woman, what do you know about product design? This is a man's battlefield, get out. And Theodore was sitting at the head seat discussing details with people. He had tacitly approved of everything that had happened. Even when Genevieve's design became a hit, all she got was a few tens of thousands of dollars from Theodore, under the guise of royalties. But everyone knew it was hush money. Later, she was suppressed by her team and was fired without even receiving her wages. Because of her lack of income, she had no choice but to beg the Zhujiangxiu for money. And on that day, her mother passed away in the hospital, filled with hatred. I generously gave her money and resources. She didn't disappoint me. She got plastic surgery and improved her temperament. Under my careful arrangements, Theodore had indeed become interested in Genevieve, who was playing the violin at a restaurant. Genevieve was both charming and innocent. She didn't seem to have any scheming thoughts when she was by Theodore's side. This was the point about Genevieve that he liked the most, but it was also the most fatal one. He thought Genevieve was simple-minded, and that her greatest interest was revolving around him. He was terribly wrong. Genevieve, like me, just wanted to use him to get to the resources and connections she wanted. Later, Genevieve revealed her identity. Based on Theodore's background as a new business tycoon, she successfully got recognized by the Zhujiang CEO. The marriage between the two families seemed like a match made in heaven, but in reality, they both had their own hidden agendas. The Zhujiang Corporation had not kept pace with the times in recent years, and was on the verge of being eliminated by the industry. It was in desperate need of someone to lead the change. And the Theodore Corporation had cash flow problems and was in the most need of money. On the wedding day, the Theodore Corporation's cash flow broke down, and Theodore asked his future father-in-law for help. Instead, he received the news of the Zhujiang Corporation's failed reform. The two sides ended up fighting each other, and the scene was very unpleasant. One wanted to continue the glory of his enterprise by selling his daughter, and the other wanted to suck his wife's blood to maintain the group's operations. Both are social scums. They look down on women the most, but they need women to prop up their doorframes. Ugh. I applauded for her. Well said. Girls must have high aspirations. After all, there's vast land under our feet, and there are many places we haven't been to yet. Why should we limit ourselves for a man?